Ladies and gentlemen, there is a divine word for you today. God is saying, your time is coming. The struggle you are facing is not the end of your story. The pain you feel is not a punishment, but a preparation. You may not see it now, but heaven has already scheduled your breakthrough. One of the greatest mistakes people make is to confuse delay with denial. Delay does not mean God has forgotten you. The enemy wants you to believe that because you haven't seen the manifestation, God has changed his mind. But the truth is, God is never late. He is always on time. There is something powerful about understanding the nature of time in the kingdom of God. Time is not just measured in minutes and hours. It is measured in purpose. The greatest mistake people make is assuming that because something has not happened yet, it means it will never happen. But the truth is, God does not operate according to human clocks. His timing is not controlled by seasons, calendars, or deadlines set by man. When God ordains a moment, no force in hell can stop it, and no delay on earth can cancel it. Delay is not a denial. The waiting season is not a wasted season. When God makes you wait, it is because he is working on something greater than what you can see. Every great move of God is preceded by a season of waiting. Abraham waited 25 years for the promise. Joseph waited 13 years from the pit to the palace. David was anointed king, but went back to tending sheep. Why? Because divine elevation requires divine preparation. God will never promote you beyond what your character can handle. Many people ask for a blessing they are not ready to carry. They pray for a platform, but their foundation is too weak to sustain the weight of their calling. God, in his wisdom, withholds certain things, not as punishment, but as protection. He will not give you something that will destroy you. The seed does not complain when it is buried in the soil. It does not resist the darkness, nor does it fight the pressure of the earth covering it. The seed understands that before it can rise, it must remain hidden. Before it can produce fruit, it must endure a process. The roots grow first, unseen, before anything appears on the surface. In the same way, God is allowing your roots to grow deep before he reveals what he has planted in you. Many want to rise overnight, but what grows too fast withers too soon. God is establishing your foundation so that when he brings you to the place he has prepared, you will not be shaken. The danger of impatience is that it makes people step out of God's timing. When Sarah could not see the promise manifesting, she took matters into her own hands and gave Abraham her maid Hagar. Ishmael was the result of impatience. When people try to force a blessing before its time, they create something that looks like the promise but lacks the power of the promise. The right thing at the wrong time is still the wrong thing. What God has spoken over your life will come to pass, but it must happen in the appointed season. No matter how much you pray, fast, or try to manipulate the process, God will not release it before the set time. Faith is trusting God even when you cannot trace him. It is believing that he is working behind the scenes even when everything around you seems still. Waiting does not mean inactivity, it means preparation. Noah built the ark before the rain came. Joseph stored grain before the famine arrived. The wise prepare while they wait because they understand that when God moves, he moves suddenly. Those who are unprepared will miss their moment. Your season is coming, but the question is, will you be ready? The enemy wants you to give up in the waiting season because he knows what is on the other side of your obedience. The storm always intensifies before the breakthrough. The attacks increase right before the promotion. This is not the time to quit, doubt, or compromise. This is the time to press in, to stand firm, and to trust that he who promised is faithful. What God has spoken cannot be reversed. What he has ordained cannot be canceled, and what he has prepared for you is greater than what you could ever imagine. God's timing is perfect. Your delay is not a denial. The waiting is not in vain. The process is not punishment. When the fullness of time comes, everything God has promised will manifest, and no power in hell can stop it. Keep trusting. Keep believing. Your time is coming. Faith is the currency of the kingdom. Just as money is required to transact in the physical world, faith is the medium through which divine exchanges take place. Nothing moves in the kingdom of God without faith. It is the foundation upon which all things stand, the key that unlocks the invisible into the visible, the bridge that connects the natural to the supernatural. Without faith, it is impossible to please God, because faith is the evidence that you trust him beyond what your eyes can see. Faith is not a feeling, it is not an emotion, it is a law, an unshakable principle that governs how God operates. Many struggle because they want to see before they believe, but faith does not work that way. Faith demands that you believe before you see. It is the ability to stand on God's word when there is no sign of fulfillment. It is the confidence that what he has spoken will come to pass, even when circumstances say otherwise. Faith does not ask for proof, because faith itself is the proof. It is the title deed to what God has already declared. The reason some people never walk into their destiny is because they wait for natural confirmation before stepping into divine assignments. But God does not give explanations, he gives instructions. He told Abraham to leave his country without telling him the destination. He told Noah to build an ark before rain had ever fallen. He told Peter to step out of the boat before the water became solid beneath his feet. Faith does not wait for logic to agree. Faith moves in obedience and lets God handle the outcome. Trusting God's process is the hardest part, because the process often looks nothing like the promise. When God gives a word, he does not show you the middle, he only reveals the end. He told Joseph he would be a ruler, but he did not tell him about the betrayal, the pit, or the prison. He told David he would be king, but he did not mention the years of running for his life. He told the Israelites about the promised land, but he did not explain the wilderness. Why? Because if God showed you the process, many would walk away before the promise was fulfilled. Faith is the ability to trust the process even when the process is painful. It is understanding that just because it is difficult does not mean it is not God. There is a refining that happens in the process that cannot happen in the palace. The fire that purifies gold is the same fire that prepares you for your destiny. God allows pressure because pressure produces capacity. The weight of your calling requires a strength that can only be developed in the process. Many want the promotion but do not want the preparation. They pray for a harvest but refuse to endure the season of planting. But God will never give you something you are not ready to sustain. He does not just want to bless you, he wants to prepare you to carry the blessing without being destroyed by it. Faith does not waver in the waiting. The enemy's strategy is to make you doubt in the delay, to convince you that if it has not happened yet, it will never happen. But faith refuses to be moved by time. Faith understands that delay is not denial, that waiting does not mean forgotten. The seed does not sprout the same day it is planted, but it is growing even when it cannot be seen. Some are losing faith because they are focused on what is missing instead of what God is building behind the scenes. Just because you cannot see movement does not mean nothing is happening. When you trust God's process, you walk in expectation even when there is no manifestation. You praise before the breakthrough. You rejoice before the answer. You move forward even when the path is unclear. Faith does not shrink in the face of impossibility. It speaks what God has said until what God has said becomes reality. Faith is not believing in what is possible. It is believing in what only God can do. Faith stands firm. Faith does not compromise. Faith holds on when everything else says let go. Faith is the currency of the kingdom, and when you have it, you will lack nothing. Waiting is never wasted when God is involved. The season of waiting is not a season of stagnation. It is a season of preparation. It is in the waiting that God develops what is necessary for the fulfillment of his promises. Too many people mistake waiting for inactivity, but in the kingdom, waiting is never passive. It is active, strategic, and intentional. When God makes you wait, he is working on something within you that cannot be rushed. He is not only preparing the blessing for you, he is preparing you for the blessing. Every great destiny is shaped in the waiting season. Before God brings manifestation, he brings transformation. There are things that must be removed from your life before you can step into what he has ordained. There are habits that must be broken, mindsets that must be shifted, and disciplines that must be formed. God will never give you what your character cannot sustain. The waiting season is designed to refine you, to stretch you, to develop the capacity necessary to carry the weight of your calling. Many people pray for elevation, but they resist the process that builds the foundation for elevation. The deeper the foundation, the higher the building can rise. God will not allow you to rise on a weak foundation because he is not just interested in getting you there, he wants to keep you there. The process of waiting is uncomfortable because it often looks like nothing is happening. The enemy will try to convince you that God has forgotten you, that your prayers are unheard, that your time will never come. But faith understands that waiting does not mean forgotten. A seed does not grow the moment it is planted. For a season it remains hidden beneath the soil, unseen and unnoticed. But beneath the surface a process is taking place. Roots are being established. Strength is being developed. And at the appointed time, what was buried will break through. Many people abort their destiny because they walk away before the appointed time. They mistake the silence of the process for the absence of progress. But just because you cannot see movement does not mean nothing is happening. God is working behind the scenes, aligning circumstances, shifting situations, preparing the right people, and setting the stage for what he has spoken. There is a reason God does not reveal everything at once. If Joseph had seen the pit, the betrayal, the prison, and the years of struggle, he might have given up before he ever reached the palace. If David had known that after being anointed, he would spend years running for his life, he might have turned back before stepping into his kingship. God does not show the middle because the process is designed to develop trust. If you only trust him when you see results, you have not yet learned faith. Faith is believing when there is no evidence, holding on when there is no sign, trusting when there is no confirmation. The waiting season separates those who truly trust God from those who only trust convenience. Waiting is where endurance is built. It is easy to have faith when doors are opening, when opportunities are flowing, when everything is falling into place. But true faith is proven in the waiting. Can you worship while you wait? Can you remain faithful when there is no reward in sight? Can you hold on when nothing makes sense? This is what determines whether you are ready for what God has in store. The waiting season is not a test of God's faithfulness. It is a test of your faithfulness. Will you remain steadfast or will you compromise? Will you keep pressing forward or will you settle? Those who endure the waiting season are the ones who walk in divine fulfillment. When the waiting is over, everything God has spoken will come to pass exactly as he ordained. Not a moment too soon, not a second too late. The timing of God is perfect, and what he has prepared for you is greater than what you could ever imagine. Opposition is not a sign that you are failing. It is evidence that you are advancing. The presence of adversity is not proof of God's absence. It is confirmation that you are stepping into something greater. The enemy does not attack what is not a threat. The moment you start walking in your purpose, the resistance will come. The moment you start moving toward destiny, the pressure will increase. But pressure is not designed to break you. It is designed to reveal what is inside you. Every great promotion comes with great opposition, because before God elevates you, he must test what you are made of. Many people pray for promotion, but do not understand that promotion always comes with resistance. You cannot have one without the other. Joseph was given a dream of greatness, but before he could wear the robe of royalty, he was thrown into a pit, sold as a slave, and wrongfully imprisoned. David was anointed king, but before he could sit on the throne, he spent years running from Saul. Jesus himself was announced as the Son of God, but before he could walk in his full authority, he was led into the wilderness to be tested. Every time God releases a word over your life, the enemy will try to challenge it. Every time a new level is unlocked, new opposition arises. But opposition is not a sign to retreat. It is a sign to advance. Opposition is the training ground for promotion. It forces you to develop spiritual endurance. The weight of your calling requires the strength to carry it. The resistance you are facing is not to destroy you, but to equip you. Muscles do not grow without resistance, and faith does not grow without trials. If you run every time opposition comes, you will never walk in the fullness of your destiny. Some people want the reward without the refining, the elevation without the endurance, the crown without the cross. But in the kingdom, the path to promotion always goes through the fire. The fire does not burn you, it purifies you. The trials do not weaken you, they establish you. The attacks on your life are not about where you are. They're about where you are going. The enemy is not fighting your present. He is fighting your future. He sees what God has placed inside you, and his goal is to stop you before you step into it. That is why the warfare intensifies when you are on the edge of breakthrough. That is why the battles seem to increase when you are closer to destiny. The enemy does not waste his energy on those who are going nowhere. The greater the opposition, the greater the assignment. If you were not a threat, there would be no attack. If your destiny was not significant, there would be no resistance. The worst mistake you can make is to allow opposition to make you doubt your promotion. Many give up right before the breakthrough, not realizing that the pressure is a signal that they are stepping into a new dimension. The enemy cannot stop what God has ordained, but he will try to make you stop yourself. He will use fear to make you retreat, discouragement to make you quit, and distractions to make you lose focus. But those who endure the opposition will see the fulfillment of the promise. Every attack is a setup for advancement. Every challenge is positioning you for something greater. The same opposition that was meant to destroy you will be the very thing that lifts you. The pit could not stop Joseph. The wilderness could not stop David. And the cross could not stop Jesus. When God has called you, no weapon formed against you can prosper. Your promotion is not in the hands of people, circumstances, or opposition. It is in the hands of God. And when he says it is time, no force in hell can hold you back. Keep pressing forward. The opposition is proof that your promotion's near. Your breakthrough is not a matter of chance. It is already scheduled by heaven. Before you were formed, before you took your first breath, before you faced the battles that tried to break you, heaven had already marked the moment of your victory. Nothing you are facing right now is a surprise to God. He is not trying to figure out how to bring you out. He already has the way prepared. The problem is not whether God has planned your breakthrough. The challenge is whether you have the faith to wait for it. Many people struggle because they think delay means denial. They assume that because the promise has not manifested yet, it is not going to happen. But heaven does not operate on earthly time. God is not bound by human schedules, and his timing is always perfect. When he declares a breakthrough, nothing in this world can stop it. No opposition, no setback, no failure, no delay can override what he has ordained. Where the enemy may try to hinder you, but he cannot cancel what God has written. The vision may tarry, but it will come to pass at the appointed time. The process before breakthrough is where most people give up. They see no movement, they feel no progress, and they begin to doubt. But faith is not based on what you see. Faith is based on what God has spoken. If he said it, it is already done. You may not see the evidence yet, but that does not mean nothing is happening. When a seed is planted, it does not sprout. There is a season where it remains hidden underground, but beneath the surface, the roots are growing. The foundation is being established, and at the right time, it breaks through. Some are walking away from their promise too soon because they do not understand that silence does not mean inactivity. Just because you cannot see the movement does not mean heaven is not working on your behalf. Your breakthrough has already been set, and no force in hell can cancel what heaven has scheduled. The enemy's greatest strategy is to make you weary in the waiting. He knows he cannot stop what God has planned, but if he can make you give up before it manifests, then you will never walk in what was meant for you. That is why the warfare intensifies before the breakthrough. That is why everything seems to get worse before the shift happens. Because the moment of greatest pressure is always right before the promise is fulfilled. If you can endure the testing, if you can remain faithful in the waiting, then you will see the manifestation of what God has spoken. Every great destiny has a process. Joseph had a promise of greatness, but before he saw the fulfillment, he was betrayed, sold into slavery, thrown into prison and forgotten. David was anointed king, but before he sat on the throne, he faced giants, ran for his life, and lived in caves. Even Jesus himself had to endure the cross before the resurrection. The breakthrough is guaranteed, but the process cannot be skipped. The waiting is not punishment, it is preparation. The delays are not setbacks, they are divine setups. What God has prepared for you is greater than what you can imagine. And when the appointed time arrives, everything will shift in an instant. What seemed impossible will suddenly become possible. What was closed will open. What was lost will be restored. When heaven schedules your breakthrough, no man, no circumstance, no obstacle can stand in the way. Keep standing, keep believing, keep pressing forward. The moment you have been waiting for is already written in eternity. And when it comes, nothing will be able to stop it. When it is your time, nothing can stop it. No force, no delay, no opposition, no enemy can stand in the way of what God has ordained. The plans of man cannot override the will of God, and when heaven declares that your season has come, everything in creation must align with his word. There is no power strong enough to block what God has set in motion. The doors that have been locked will swing open. The barriers that have stood in your way will crumble. And the things that once seemed impossible will suddenly become your reality. Many people struggle because they think the resistance they face is a sign that they are not meant to succeed. They assume that because things are difficult, the promise must not be for them. But in the kingdom, opposition is often the greatest confirmation that you are right on track. The enemy does not fight what is not a threat. The pressure increases when you are close to something great. The darkness grows stronger when the breakthrough is near. But the forces of darkness do not have the final say. God does. And when he declares that it is your time, no amount of resistance can hold you back. What is for you cannot be stolen. What God has prepared for you cannot be taken by another. The world may try to block you. People may try to discredit you. Circumstances may seem against you. But if God has called your name, it does not matter who tries to stand in the way. When David was anointed to be king, Saul tried to stop him. He chased him, hunted him, and did everything in his power to keep David from the throne. But Saul did not hold the authority. God did. And when the appointed time came, David walked into his destiny and nothing could prevent it. The greatest mistake you can make is to allow delays to make you doubt. Just because it has not happened yet does not mean it is not going to happen. The timing of God is not the timing of man. What seems like a delay is often a setup. What looks like a denial is often a preparation. The waiting season is where God refines, strengthens, and builds the foundation necessary to sustain the blessing. The worst thing that could happen is for you to step into a season you are not ready for. God will never release something before its appointed time. The process may feel long, but when it is your time, everything will move in divine acceleration. Some doors will remain closed until the right moment. Some opportunities will not manifest until the right season. You may feel overlooked, forgotten, or behind, but heaven does not operate on human schedules. There are things that have already been set for you, and when that moment arrives, no force will be able to hold you back. Joseph was forgotten in prison for years, but when his time came, he was lifted from the pit to the palace in a single day. One moment he was in chains, and the next he was in command. When it is your time, the shift will be sudden, the breakthrough will be undeniable, and the blessing will be unstoppable. The enemy cannot stop what God has ordained. The only thing that can delay destiny is your own doubt, fear, and hesitation. If you believe what God has spoken, if you refuse to quit, if you remain steadfast in faith, then what is written in heaven must manifest on earth. No man, no system, no circumstance can change what God has said in motion. The promise is already prepared. The path is already made. And when the appointed time comes, you will step into everything that has been destined for you, and nothing will be able to stop it.